Hi fans, we hope you're enjoying each episode of Let's Talk Trio. Each story is so unique and inspirational. Our podcast continues to grow, and we know we have a variety of listeners from across the country. Much like NPR and public radio stations, we need your support to keep the podcast going. Sharing your favorite episode, using your favorite platform to download each episode, and rating us on Apple Podcasts or Podbean is extremely helpful. What else can you do? Become a patron via Patreon. There are a variety of donor levels. You can donate one time or consider being a monthly patron. Search Patreon for Let's Talk Trio Podcast. Your support goes a long way toward maintenance of the podcast, which includes upgrading and maintaining our equipment, travel funds, and software licenses to stay in the cutting edge of podcasting. Any dollar amount really helps us out. We thank you for being fans of the podcast. Thank you for all of the support.
You are listening to Let's Talk Trio on podcast. Keep up with the latest episodes by downloading the Podbean app or stream episodes via our social media accounts. Search for Let's Talk Trio on Facebook or Instagram. This episode is sponsored by Student Access. Student Access, the leader in Trio software. Student Access is an online database solution that allows Trio programs to track their students' information, connect with students by text messages, streamline the APR, and work from anywhere, all online, with automatic updates for changes from the Department of Education. Their technical support team includes former Trio staff and has over 50 years of combined experience working with Trio. Make it easier to focus on your priority, the students. For more information and to request a free demo, visit their website at www.studentaccess.com or call them toll-free at 1-800-801-1232. That website again is www.studentaccess.com or 1-800-801-1232. Be sure to share your favorite episodes on your social media by tapping that share button. This is a great way to support the podcast. Now here's your host, Juan Rivas.
Thank you, Amelia, for that wonderful introduction. Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Let's Talk Trio. In this episode, we have Angelica Vialpando. She is with the Council for Opportunity in Education and serves as the Vice President for Program and Professional Development. Angelica is on the program to talk about her journey through college, what inspired her to move to Washington, D.C., and every little story in between on how all those events happened. It was a real pleasure to sit down with Angelica and just talk about her past and how she came up with this path to college. And really, it was just a pleasure listening to her story and listening to how she came to work for COE. And what I took away from that is she's a very social person, loves to connect with the Trio programs, and COE is definitely in the side of the Upward Bound programs, the Student Support Services program, Talent Search, the Equal Opportunity Centers, the Ronald E. McNair programs, the Gear Ups, and the various programs that exist under Trio. And we have a solid ally, right? That this person is out there doing the trainings, making sure that the Trio programs are up to snuff with everything that is going on, whether it's policy, professional development, or various other topics. If you'd like to be featured on Let's Talk Trio, make sure that you send us a direct message via Facebook or Instagram. We are taking up spots right now, and we are almost halfway full through June. So if you want to get in for an interview or highlight your program, please let us know. We will make room to record either through Microsoft Teams or through Zoom. We are still exploring licensing options, so please bear with us as we navigate through all that. But yes, if you'd like to have your program highlighted or a student highlighted or even your staff highlighted, please let us know. Thank you to all the essential workers out there, whether you're a nurse, you're in the grocery store, or whatever job you hold. Right now you are keeping us all together and making sure that this world is still flowing and doing what it's supposed to be doing. Here in Colorado, we are slowly opening things back up. We're under phase 1. Phase 1 is a soft opening. We are allowed to start going to shops, start going to restaurants, and we're doing things very, very slowly. Still, a lot of the restrictions are still in place. We don't want to congregate with more than 5 people. So we hope wherever you are, you're practicing your state's mandated COVID-19 restrictions. That either you're staying away from groups of people of more than 5, and that you're not congregating in large number of groups, and that you're also practicing social distancing. And again, our podcast has been, as soon as this was announced, we immediately switched gears. We wanted to travel up to New Mexico. We wanted to go to Wyoming, and it didn't work out that way. So we immediately started getting creative with how to present our podcast. Now, we missed out on a month, about 2 months. And in those 2 months, we were rescheduling and figuring out different ways to produce and still put a quality podcast together. And so far it's come very well together. I know we've had some technical glitches here and there, but that's how Wi-Fi works, or how the bandwidth of video conferencing works as well. So we're still exploring, we're still doing a lot of things for our podcast to make sure that we're giving you quality episodes. A huge thank you to Student Access for continuing to sponsor the podcast. Thank you all so much. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome, our listeners, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Trio. My guest on this podcast is a graduate of the University of Wyoming with a Bachelor of Arts degree in accounting. She received that degree in 1999. She moved to Washington, D.C. a month after graduation. She is an employee of the Council for Opportunity in Education and serves as the Vice President for Program and Professional Development. Is a proud mother of 2 daughters, ages 8 and 5, and currently lives with her partner of 13 years. Please help me welcome Angelica Vialpando to the Let's Talk Trio podcast. Angelica, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I do have to say that I'm a little nervous.
Oh, you cannot. No, do not look nervous at all. I think you're doing so far so good. And I just want I know that we're kind of living in the world of the pandemic and working from home. Has that been kind of going well so far for you?
No, absolutely not. So, okay, I live in a world of privilege, right? I am very fortunate. We live in a 2-family home. We both have jobs that we could work at our home from. So, all of my problems or my little rants are very privileged, right? So I start off with that. But having 2 parents working at home with 2 kids, one in 3rd grade and one in pre-kinder. Oh, wow. So she's not actually in school yet. But it's been really hard, really hard. My desk is at the table, kitchen table, which I like. I really do like. And it's a big table, and both of my kids are there, and they are forced to work on their homework or their classwork. And I since the pandemic and COE, we've been doing about 8 webinars a week. I kid you not. Wow. So we did 3 today. 3 today. And so I just talk all day is what I do. And but my kids want to be on the webinar. They want me to help them do their homework while I'm on the webinar. So it's been hard. It's really hard for the teachers. I mean, listen, today was the best day because we were doing civics. It's actually their social studies, but it's really civic engagement, which is fabulous because that's something that I do know about. So I was in that and math. I was in confidence that I knew the answer to. Nothing else. You should see me trying to do science. It's ridiculous. But I am fortunate. My sister-in-law lives about 5 blocks away, and she takes the kids 2 to 3 days a week. So,
that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. I can totally relate. I know that experience. Since mid-March, my kids have been here as well. So trying to do a podcast, trying to work from home, and trying to do everything, it's like right now I'm broadcasting in my own room, and then 2
Okay.
6 weeks ago it was working in the living room. So I totally hear you. It's having to adjust to all that. But I
was going to ask you, because I knew you had little ones too. Well, maybe not so little. Do you have preteens, or do you have teenagers? I can't remember.
Yeah, so I have an oldest one. He is a teenager, and
okay.
Just last week he was doing his finals. So he had band, and he was doing his final while I was at a meeting, and I just had to kind of apologize to her. Was like, if you hear noise, that's my son doing his final for his band. And they're like, no need to apologize. He's doing great, and you could just hear him drumming away. But yeah, I have a teenager. He's in high school. Currently, he's going into the 11th grade, and then I have 2 little ones. One is going into middle school next year, and then my youngest one, who is still in elementary, he'll be a 5th grader this upcoming year. So, yeah.
Wow. Hard ages on all of it.
Yes.
Yes. We're very close to our kids, and we really want them to go away, you know? So, holy cow. And they don't want to go outside.
No.
It's been beautiful here, right? And so I've been, go jump on the trampoline and go outside. No, they want to stay and play Minecraft. Their kids, or Roblox, or it's ridiculous.
It's Roblox, it's YouTube, it's binge watching every single episode of whatever show they've caught their interest at the moment. I hear you. I
can't keep up, and it's just crazy. I couldn't. I'm like, I'm gonna go outside. I'm gonna go work for a little bit.
So I feel like we're now dedicating part of this episode to just really mentally check in with each other as parents, and just to see, Angelica, how are you doing? How's your partner doing? Like, are you all handling this teaching from home, doing that very well?
Well, we're not. We're doing okay. We're doing okay. We are. So Alan has the luxury of shutting his office door, and we know not to bother Dad, right? So that's good. But he also he starts his day very early, and he tries to end by 3. Mm-hmm. He is the one that has kept us fed. He's the one that's doing the grocery shopping, so he goes on every morning to see if we can get a delivery. We haven't been we haven't seen anybody besides my 2 sister-in-laws since March 19th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we've gone nowhere, absolutely nowhere. My car is dead, and my battery needs to be replaced. And he's like, don't worry about it. We're not going to go anywhere for a while, you know?
Oh, no.
No, but but we lose it sometimes. But for the most part, we're okay. We're okay.
Colorado, what we've been able to do is we've been able to stem COVID-19, and we're now slowly phasing parts of the plan to open everything back up. But yeah.
So we had a senior staff meeting today, and we were trying to follow for this. Usually we follow Congress, but for this we've been trying to follow DC policies.
Oh yeah.
And so they're opening in 3 phases, but realistically us actually being in the office normally will not come till the end of the summer, and then who knows where we'll be at the end of the summer. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, but you have a girlfriend, right?
I do not. No, I am single at the moment.
Just making this up, ladies. Hello. Okay.
No, don't advertise me like that, Angelica. You're way too much.
I didn't mean to come off like that. Okay.
This is. I'll put a note for John. Like, we can either edit this out or leave.
Yeah, it's not a dating podcast. Okay, I gotcha. Okay.
Sorry. I haven't laughed this much in a podcast, so this is awesome. But no, currently doing the single dad thing. The ex-wife and I, we just changed where we trade off. We do what we have to do to make sure everything's okay on that end. But yeah, I mean, enjoying being single at the moment.
Well, I have a great appreciation for Colorado State. It is our rival for the University of Wyoming, but
oh, that's right.
I have a lot of great friends. One of my best friends, Andrea Reeve, she retired from Colorado State a number of years ago, but so I try to visit Fort Collins quite a bit. When I was young, all the people in Laramie wanted to move to Fort Collins. So everybody wanted to live in Fort Collins.
It exploded from when I came to visit Fort Collins about 10 years ago just to scope out the place. It has exploded since, and there's a lot of people. I know that the housing crisis is kind of a real thing here. It's very short on housing, and housing is super expensive in Fort Collins. So,
they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, because, there's not even any, it used to be, there was some space between even cities in Colorado. So Wyoming, of course, there's nothing. So, you go 20 miles, you hit the border, then another probably 40 minutes and you hit Fort Collins, right?
Yeah.
But once you hit Fort Collins, you're in city the whole time. It's like nothing, it just expanded.
Yeah.
So it's so crazy from when I was little.
It has grown tremendously, and I know that I've seen some of your Facebook posts where you come visit Colorado, and in the future we definitely need to sit down and just either do a live podcast right there and there, or just go, me and you just hang out for lunch and just see how things are going with you. But
that's perfect.
That's awesome. I love the conversation that we're having so far. But how are things in DC? You kind of you painted a good picture of how life is like. It's been super restrictive. It sounds like you really confine yourself to that quarantine. Can you share with us a little bit more about your life in DC?
Sure. So I live for the last 13 years. I've lived here in College Park, Maryland. So I live in a suburb, and we decided to move from DC to the suburbs when we had kids. So I guess not 13 years. I guess 9 years. Sorry. Okay, 9 years I've been here. Oh, yeah. So, but DC, I went in to pick up a check. So I just drove in. I was driving back home, and it was depressing. I come from a city where you just have lots of people walking around, especially during a business day, and it's jam-packed. I mean, nobody talks to one another, and everybody's listening to their headphones or whatever, but still, there's still lots of people, lots of places to get lost in. Places are booming. The bakeries are open. Coffee shops are open, and it's a ghost town. In my last week in DC, which I haven't been at work since March 19th. I went in a couple of days to get a coffee, and they were shutting the coffee shops down by noon, and they had very skeleton staff, and it was just really sad. And but I will say that I take the pandemic very serious, and I am very worried about people in general, and I think by sheltering in place, it is a smart move to do.
Absolutely.
I do understand the people who are essential workers who have to work, and I get that the economy needs to be up and running, but until we find testing, until we find how we can to really manage this and fight this, I'm okay staying at my house and being upset with my kids. So,
well, no, I think for a good majority of Americans, right, we believe that sheltering in place is the right move. I think the federal government needs to step up and continue providing assistance to people that are less fortunate or that need that stimulus. That first round was okay. I think the second round definitely need a little bit more. That way it'll help not only people that are facing those financial challenges, but also parents that need that little extra money to push through at least part of the summer, because we've been sheltering in place since mid-March, and $1,200. I think I've heard a variety of people saying $1,200 really doesn't go far. I completely agree. And then there's people that just got $600, and they're like, this doesn't do anything for me.
Oh, I didn't know about the $600. I know that I know about the $1,200, and because Alan was self-employed last year, so he actually, and he has our kids on the taxes, so he qualified for that. Oh, nice. But it was nice. Again, we're fortunate. We're working, and but there's so many people in need, so many people.
Absolutely. Agreed.
But in terms of like Congress, I mean, it's just such a weird place to be in, right? Where we are the capital, the nation's people's house in the sense. And, They're not. They're all working, and they're all over 70, so they better be at home, right? They should not be talking to anybody, face to face. So it's gonna be really weird for a very long time.
It really is. It's gonna be something that's gonna impact us for a while, right? For the foreseeable future, and. Thank you so much for kind of painting that picture. I think we talked a little bit about your family and how they're doing. How are your daughters adjusted to being at home?
So my 8-year-old going on 20. She's a very she's a social butterfly. She every morning I don't have to tell her, wake her up. She's ready. Excuse me, to go to school. Nothing to do about school, okay? It's all about being with her friends and being there, being the social butterfly.
Got it.
So it's very, very hard for her, and she is she's such an adult in a lot of ways. She can't manage her emotions. She had been in therapy about this because she doesn't do emotions very well, and so her now just being with her little sister, all right, is just driving her crazy. But it is showing her that she can have conversations about, forcing those emotions out, like, Mom, I'm just having a bad day. I mean, you're like, whoa. Yeah. Because, instead of having a fit, right, just, okay, you're having a bad day. That's amazing. Even if you don't want to talk to me, I love that. That's good. Go calm down by yourself, kind of thing. So she's having a hard time. She's been on the phone more than I've ever seen an 8-year-old should be. Yeah. Which is dumb. She should not be, on the phone as much as she has been.
But I think, right, she has a good excuse because the phone is really the connection to the outside world. And
it is.
That's my son. Like, I had to check on our Sprint bill last month, and I'm like, dude, you've been on the phone for 3,000 minutes? What is this?
Yeah, right? No joke. We have application limits, and every day she's like, Mom, can I get just one more hour? It's just crazy. But, yeah, so that's good. So her friends have been there for her. My little one, so she's 5, she'll be 6 in October, and she's just my little girl. But we're worried about her now. She's supposed to be getting ready for kindergarten and getting ready to learn how to read. And she missed the whole spring semester at a pre-K. And you don't want me teaching anybody to read. And so it's been interesting. She's been, she does Zoom with her class on occasion. But I feel like it's putting her into being a real introvert. And I'm real worried about that as an extrovert. So but she's doing okay. They're doing okay. Again, they haven't seen anybody, they haven't seen any friends in a long time, but they do have their ways of connecting. And my sister-in-law hosts she has this group of friends, and they all have 2.5 kids, and my 2 sister-in-laws don't have any kids, so they use my kids, which is fabulous. And they're a part of this group, and they get together every Saturday and they play kid games. And there's like 20 kids, so they get to be a part of that, so that's fabulous.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I was just going to share with you that my daughter, so all 3 of them have like their own approach and their own way of doing school.
Yeah.
My oldest, locks himself in the room, does his schoolwork. My daughter is very kind of intentional with her time. She goes out into the living room. She's like, I am in school right now. And I'm like, that is amazing. That's you go and do that. But my youngest, he struggles with that time management. He's like, what am I supposed to be doing? Can I go play Legos right now? And I was like, oh no, Harvey, you're supposed to be working. And he's like, I'm going to go play Legos. Call me in 15 minutes.
It's so funny. It's how night and day they are, right? Yes, and you have 3, so you see the whole spectrum, right?
A gamut of wow. This is going to be life from here on out. Okay.
I'm like, they both came out of me. I don't understand this. Yes, they're so very different, and they're not. I didn't have a senior. I don't have a kid transitioning from middle school to high school or from elementary to middle school. So I am thankful for that. And I do think the pre-K to kindergarten is a much easier transition in a lot of ways because everybody does that anyway.
Oh yeah. But it's still special. It's still special because it's your transition, right? Your family's transition and helping them, guiding them into that next phase in their life. So that's awesome.
It's a very bumpy road.
I hear you. I hear you.
Yes.
So as I'm speaking to you about working at home and doing all of this, I've been speaking to a lot of my friends, and they've shared that they miss their office space. Do you find that to be true for you? Like, do you really miss your workspace?
I miss the people.
I miss the people.
Yeah, I miss walking into, Al Phillips' office or sitting down and having a meeting with Maureen Hoyler. I miss not being able to do something on my computer because I'm so tech ignorant, and going down and making John coming in and help me. I miss talking to people. I miss chatting with people. One thing I do more now is connect via Zoom with people face to face from the community, which is good, right? I do like that. I do like having that connection. That's different, but I really miss being in my office and being around people. And even when we do go back to the office, I think it's going to be completely different. Yeah. So,
that's gonna change for sure.
Yeah. So that's what I miss. I miss that camaraderie. I miss, bouncing ideas off of people. I miss all that. I feel that sense of connection is really hard. It's so isolating this way.
It can be. Absolutely.
But
so now that we're talking about reminiscing and kind of going back and archiving and looking back at our journey, the audience is all about listening about individual stories and how a person, went through everything that they went through and ended up in college. Can you talk to us a little bit about your journey and how you went to college?
Sure. So I'm a first generation graduate. Woo-hoo. So I know. Woo. I was born and raised in Laramie, Wyoming. So I'm Mexican American. I'm a 1990 girl, so 1999 graduate. So I'm a Chicana. But both of my parents are from Colorado, Wyoming area. That's where they grew up. They came up. My father's father was a rancher in Colorado. My mother's father was on the railroad. It was very predominant in Wyoming. Yeah. Up until the end of the 90s, really, it was still very predominant. And it still employs many people, many Mexican Americans in Wyoming, the railroad. Yeah. And so my parents both have high school diplomas. My dad actually has an associate's degree. He's a welder by trade. And so they actually paid for him to go. It wasn't a certificate. It was actually an associate's degree, but he was going for welding. Yeah. And so he does have an associate's degree, but my dad worked long hours, and they didn't have a union, and he loved working. He loved his family. He loved to provide for us, but he always told my brother and I, you're never going to have this life. I will never let you have this life. You are going to work with your mind. You're not going to work with your body. Wow. Yeah. So it was, he's a very smart man. He's, and he is one of the smartest people. And as a welder, right, you have to know a lot about mathematics and spatial, and he can do all of this in his mind. It's amazing. And I think this is where my brother gets it. My brother is an engineer by trade. And so I never thought I would not go to college, right? And I lived in Laramie. The University of Wyoming is the only university in Wyoming. It's housed in Laramie, Wyoming. So my mother worked for the University of Wyoming. So it was a no-brainer. So I was always a rebel. And so for 6 beautiful months, I don't even think it was 6, maybe like 4 beautiful months. I went to school at Sonoma State University in California and ran out of money. And I was going to go to a junior college. And so if you know anything about at Wyoming, we have like 7 junior colleges and then 1 university, right?
Yeah.
And so I called my father and I was like, Dad, I'm working a lot here. I'm just going to go to the junior college that's down the street. And he was like, you know, we live in a town that has a 4-year institution that costs a fraction of what we paid for your 6 glorious months in California. It's time to come home. So like a good daughter, I packed all my stuff up and I came and went to the University of Wyoming. So I spent, again, I graduated. It took me 5 years, but I was really involved in our Mech in the United Multicultural Council, which is a council that we got a vote on our on the Senate's in the student Senate.
Yeah.
So I was really involved in that, and then my last year I stayed on for another year to be a representative on the council, meaning that the administration gets to hire 3 or 4 people to help them run their council. And so I was hired by our Senate president to do media and to do
that's so cool.
not social media, but
media. I mean, like that was
it was wonderful. So I did that. So I was highly involved. And in Wyoming, you can imagine there's not very many minorities.
No, not at all.
It's a pretty small population. So we did everything together. The APISA, the Asian Pacific Islanders, the Black Association, so Mech, there was a Native American Association. So we did a bunch of things together, and it was a really, really amazing time. And I had started off in accounting, and by the time that I decided I didn't want to do accounting, it was, I was already almost done. So I just said I would do it, but I didn't know what I was going to do, right? So I didn't want to do accounting, and I'm really terrible at it, to be honest. And so I'm sitting at this time, I'm thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do. And my good friend, David Rivera, who is now a associate professor at Queens College and at CUNY, CUNY Queens in New York City. He, at the time, he said, well, you know what? I think I'm going to try for this job at Georgetown. And there was this first generation job that they helped students, get this, okay? They helped students who were their valedictorians on their campuses, but they still weren't up to par to come to Georgetown. Mm-hmm. So they gave them this jump start, right? They helped them, very, very similar to TRIO, okay? So very much like a summer bridge program that a student support services would do to prepare them. So he was going to go for this job. Yeah. And so he's telling me this, and I was like, I can move to Washington, D.C. And so he's like, yes, let's go together. We're not young, we're naive. I'm a very optimistic person. So I just think of things and I just do them, and then I worry about it later.
Yeah, so just do it.
Which has caused me a lot of stress in my relationship with Alan. And so my good friend from high school was in med school out here, and I called her, and she said, well, Andrea Reeve is, she works here somewhere in D.C. Why don't you call her? And Andrea, when I was in college, she started off with Upward Bound and Talent Search, but when I really got to know her, she was running the first year experience. And so I had done, I was a peer mentor for her, but she also was the advisor for the APISA, the Asian Pacific Islanders Club. Okay. So I knew her really well. And I was like, I forgot. And so I called her and I said, hey, Andy, I'm looking for a job. And she's like, you know what? I work for this organization called Council for Opportunity in Education. Our executive vice president, she's looking for an assistant. It's a very entry-level position, but you'll love it, and you would learn a lot, and it'll get you to DC, right?
Yeah.
And she goes, I'll get you an interview. And I was like, okay. So literally that next week she got me an interview, and I interviewed with Maureen Hoyler. Now, have you ever met Maureen Hoyler?
I've met her once.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you know Maureen. So you have a picture, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm picturing her in my head right now.
Yes. Well, I didn't know who she was, and if you've ever had a conversation with Maureen, it can be interesting sometimes. And
sure. Yeah.
so she asked me my name. I got my name right, so that was great. We're off to a very good start.
Solid start.
And then she says, so are you Hispanic? And I said, yes. So, okay, here we go. And then, can you speak Spanish? I'm like, no. So she stops, and she's like, okay, whatever. She's like, so when are you moving here? And I said, I'm thinking July. And she was like, okay. She was like, you got the job. And I was like, she's like, yeah. She's like, we'll see you in July. And then she hung up, and I never talked to her again. Like, I tried to call her like a million times and could never get past. She has it's a fortress to get to Maureen.
Sure.
So, and now I know why, right? But it was crazy. I was like, I just got a job. And then, my father, well, how much are they paying you?
I'm like, about the money. Yeah.
I don't know. Yes, exactly. I'm like, and my father, he just shakes his head. And so I had a job, and I wasn't making any money, to be honest. And he was very upset. And but I was like, I'm going for the experience. It's going to be a good time. I'll be with David, Dad. Don't worry.
It's Washington.
And
yeah, you'd be doing that. It's building that experience.
And I was like, I can always come home. I'm an optimist, and I'm a person like, it doesn't work out. I'll just come home. No biggie. We pulled out on the end of June in 1999 from Laramie, and because we were driving out here, and my parents were sobbing, and it was the worst thing ever. And then when we hit DC, so it took us 26 hours, I think, and it was 9 a.m, and we were in traffic, and it was the worst traffic I had ever been in. And I was like, what am I doing here? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to call my father, and he's gonna have to come pick me up, and but I stayed, and we found an apartment, and we lived on Andrea's couch for a couple months. And it's been an amazing ride ever since.
Yeah.
So
I can only imagine you've gone through a lot and had to experience, like that uncertainty of how will this all work out. And so you're this first generation student just really tackling the big city head on, really.
It was again. I'm such an optimist. It's something that Marina and I really share with one another. We think everything is going to go great, and we never think anything fails. You can ask us about anything, and we have other colleagues who will be very critical. But unless all the blocks went down, we're like, that went well. I mean, that went really well. We were only a third prepared. We're great. So that's how I live my life is, everything's going to work out in the end. And so, why stress the small stuff in the sense? Sure. But, I loved being in the city. I loved being anonymous. I'm from a very small town, and everybody knows your business, and, I know. And it was just nice, just nobody knowing you, and you could be as carefree and as or as isolated or as anything that you wanted to be. You could do it, and it took a while, but we, when I say we, David and I, and then another friend from Laramie came out 6 months later. We met a group of people who still to this day are some of my closest friends. And we just, it just became my family here. So, which was great. So I was 22 years old when I moved here, and I'm 43, going on 44 very soon. So it's been a long time.
We were exchanging messages earlier when I first invited you to come and be on the podcast. And when you said, "Oh, I'm so much older," I'm like, that can't be accurate. That's not right. I mean, and I'm sorry if I'm being too forward. We can definitely edit this part out later. But you don't look like you're in your 40s. You look like you're still in your late 20s, possibly.
I heart you. Thank you. Thank you. No, my body is definitely in its 40s, and it's a rough ride. But no, it's I love that. People tell me all the time, they're like, how long you been with COE? I'm like, almost 20. I've hit my 20-year mark already, and they're like, no way. They're like, yeah, mind blown. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah. So we've been talking a little bit about COE. Can you tell us your work for the Council for Opportunity in Education, aka COE? Can you tell us a little bit about the organization, and what is it that you exactly do for COE?
Sure. So COE is a nonprofit organization. We're a membership organization, so institutions and agencies pay membership to us. We do two main things. We advocate for college access and success, mainly for TRIO programs. So what TRIO programs is, Let's Talk TRIO, right? Is a federally funded program that takes students that are low income and first generation all the way from middle school with their goal in mind is to get a college 4-year degree. Okay. And so these are all over the United States and beyond, right? And all of our territories. And we do two things. We advocate for their money. So we are that's what the premise of COE is to make sure that their appropriation is strong and that these students are getting services so they can succeed in middle school and high school and in college, and in even some cases in after college, that they receive this 4-year degree and maybe even go beyond, right? And then the second part of what we do is we train, or we provide professional development to the people who work with the students. So COE very rarely works directly with students. Some of our beloved programs are with students, but they're far and few between. We do a National Student Leadership Congress where we bring almost 200 students to Washington, D.C. every year to do a mock Congress and just see Washington, D.C., right? So that's a week event that we have students here. We also do a number of different exchanges, TRIO abroad. We do it for students. We do it for staff. But our main concern is the professionals that comes in. I'm the vice president for the professional development division, and we try to provide any type of service that would help college access and success providers. We do anything from an onboarding training of being a college access and success professional to renewing your grant. And everything that's in between. So it's fabulous, and it really hones into my skills about being a people person. My favorite thing is to be on the road and to be at conferences and to meet people and just to talk to people and hear, how do they run their program, and and how does this regulation fit into this? I mean, it sounds weird about regulations. People are always scared of them, but I love them, and I think it gives you a lot. What COE has done is put a lot of things into regulation so you don't have to rely on the Department of Ed. Because the Department of Ed have tons of smart people working for them. Don't get me wrong. But almost none of them have actually worked with low-income first-generation students, right? And so this is why they give out grants. This is why they don't do it, right? Because they give it out to people who say that they know how to do this.
Yeah.
And so it's important that we help build the regulations, that we help interpret the regulations, because we want to give as much flexibility and as much leeway to the programs to do what they are designed to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes when our people, because they work for institutions, right? Or they work for agencies, and there's a lot of this red tape, and they just want to be told what to do. They just want to be told that they can order pizza or they can buy t-shirts. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times things come down to their authority. And so a lot of my trainings are about talking about authority and talking about being confident and talking to them about being an integral part of their university, whether they're working with community students, that aren't at their university, or working with their college students. They play a pivotal role in higher education with these students.
Absolutely.
So that's what I spend 99% of my day on.
Wow.
Which is fabulous.
That's amazing. So is it fair to categorize or to discuss COE as a lobbying program, or not a lobbying program, but a lobby for education?
No, so and a lot of people think we are a lobbying firm, okay? And we're not. So it's a big distinction too in terms of your money and what you can pay for too. So let's be clear that we are a nonprofit, and we do just enough lobbying that adheres to the regulations. Okay, you can only, for an agency for our size, you can only spend about 20% of your budget, your operating budget, on lobbying purposes. Most of our stuff goes to advocating, right? Advocating for their right on their campuses, not just with the federal government, but on campuses, at their agencies, with their supervisors. So it's a lot to do with advocacy, which is that fine line between lobbying. Because the lobbying, you're asking for something. You're asking for money. You're asking for them to change a rule. Which you can't do that on federal dimes. You can't use federal money to lobby for federal funds.
I like that distinction.
It's a big no-no.
Yeah.
So we advocate. So the term would be advocate. We advocate for the success of low-income first-generation students.
Right on. So then your advocacy for first-generation low-income students, does that advocacy come with a lot of direct contact with representatives and senators? And to what extent is that relationship?
Okay, so you got to remember too that, and I'd say this in a lot of my presentations, unless I'm calling Steny Hoyer or somebody from the Maryland, district or the Senate, no one wants to hear from me about how somebody in West Virginia should vote, or Colorado should vote. So it's this empowerment, all right? So we do have a group of people at COE that, yes, they go to Congress and they talk to a bunch of people, a bunch of senators, a bunch of representatives, talking about TRIO, talking about college access and success. But if the field isn't there with us, if you're not there with us, if people in Wyoming aren't there with us, then they won't listen to us. So it's really the power of the people, right? So we teach the people how to call, how to make an appointment, how to call and talk to people, how to thank them, how to invite them to opportunities to see your kids in action, right? Whether it's a summer program, or it's a McNair research symposium, or just coming to visit your college campus and see your students in action there. So that's what we do. And yes, we have Kimberly Jones, who's newly our executive vice president, but before that she was our vice president for government relations. So her and Jonathan Elkin, who's relatively new to COE, but he is the vice president for government relations. And then Stephanie Salvador is our director of congressional affairs. Yes, they're Jonathan and Stephanie are on the Hill quite a bit. And they're also talking to the field quite a bit, right? They're also saying they're informing, they're giving them talking points, they're asking them to call, they're setting up meetings, they're saying, hey, we need a kid from South Carolina, to come testify, and we go to the field. So it's really powerful because it's really you guys, it's really the TRIO community that is the lobbyists, right? It's just, we're just helping them. We also help them make them feel comfortable in the offices. Listen, most of those people on Capitol Hill are 25 years old or less, right? We've been around the moon a little bit longer than they have. And so we try to let them understand what they're really walking into and how much experience they have, right? Because it is a scary experience.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, I don't think I've been on Capitol Hill for the last 10 years. Earlier on policy seminar or the National Student Leadership Congress, because they meet with their congressional reps too when they're here, the kids do when they're here in the summer. We have a dedicated staff that would go with some, just depending if they were on some more important meetings. Sure. We would send people with them, but I haven't done that in a very, very long time.
Yeah. Okay. I do have a question for you regarding kind of that. Not more of a question, but kind of a follow-up. I think the things that you all do to empower others really speaks to the directors and to the students, because I remember your outreach. This was many years ago when I was first in the ENMU Upward Bound program, and you were training us on how to advocate for our programs. And one of the things that you suggested was call your senators. And my director at the time was Roderick Chambers, who was the director for it now. And he said, you know what? We were sitting and looking at each other like, call Congress? We've never called Congress before. And why would they ask us to do that? Like, they wouldn't take our call. Well, sure enough, after your training, after we were done talking in a webinar, Roderick's like, that's our assignment today. After 5 o'clock, we're leaving a message for Congress. I was like, okay. So we ended up calling Congress. We were there. We were holding each other accountable. We called Congress, and we left our message. So that was super empowering. It may seem small, right? Like this conversation about how to talk to your congressman or congresswoman. And
it's so scary. It's so scary. And we forget that they work for us, right? That we put them there. Well, we might not have literally put them there with our vote, right? But as a collective, we put them there, and they are there to do good for us.
Absolutely.
And but I still get a little nervous when I have to do something, because we do it too, right? We find things that also impact our community, our state, and so you got to practice what you preach. You can't just tell people and then not do it yourself.
Right.
And still, every time my heart goes boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
But I promise you, though, that's how they decide. And I've had it. It was funny one time. Again, this was a long time ago, but I can't remember what the issue was, but we had called one of our, and I was on the phone. There was 3 of us on the phone, and we had called one of our champions at the time, and I can't remember where it was. It could have been like Arkansas, for all I know. And the legislative aide said, we are behind you on this, but I want to tell you, we have not heard from one TRIO person on this issue. So we think it's important. We know that COE's pushing this nationally, and and we're big supporters of TRIO. But I just want to tell you, I haven't heard from one person, and that's where we knew that we had not gotten the job done. So, because sometimes people think your champions or the people that are always behind you, they don't want to hear from us already. They're already behind you. But they have, every day are people calling them to push some agenda. And at some point, they're going to be like, well, I don't even think my trio people care about this because I'm not hearing about it. So let me do it to career tech, right? Maybe they're okay that I'm going to put $1 billion in career tech and take, $500,000 from them to do that.
Yeah.
So you got to think about things like that.
Absolutely.
And people don't. We're busy. We're parents. We have dogs. We have a life. Our struggles are real. And so we just don't on a day-to-day think about these things. So COE is always there to remind you that you have to think about these things.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, nobody else is. Because if you're not going to do it and you can't get your students to do it, then TRIO will just go away.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that's why that support for COE and what you all do is super important. Speaking of the work that you do for COE, it sounds like you are very busy providing a lot of training to TRIO programs. Is the training mostly done online, or do you travel a lot? I heard you say you travel quite, that's part of your favorite part of your job. But can you tell us a little bit about how you do your trainings? How does that come to fruition?
Well, it's changed a lot since the pandemic, but because I will say we did. So let's be real. I have to make my division also has benchmarks on money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Coming into the institution, and am I paying for my people? I mean, we're a nonprofit, but we're not poor. You can't be poor, and so. Before March, I would say we did probably 1 to 2 webinars a month, maybe on average. Yeah. And most of our stuff was face-to-face. So our responsibility was to do, we would do two legislation and regulations a year face-to-face. We have a P4, which is a training grant from the Department of Ed, which for financial aid, financial literacy, and admissions. We have that grant, so we do 4 of those a year, and we do an onboarding, which is the hybrid of online and in person. And then we do proposal writing workshops. So depending on what year we're in. So like this year coming up is the Talent Search and EOC competition. So I would travel with our legislation and regulations, our proposal writing workshops, and then what we do is as a organization, every month we get together and we look at all the state and regional association meetings and the national meetings too, like the National EOC, the National Veterans Upper Bound, all those kind of meetings, and it's in a big grid, and we go through who should go. And it's very, sometimes it's just because you want to go, you've never been, when Alaska comes around, everybody wants to go, right? But there's other times there's congressional, is there something hot going on there? If there is, then, definitely it's one of our GR team members. If it's something that we're really trying to work with alumni, we send our alumni director, if it's something about membership services, L has a connection with somebody and they need to bring up their membership. We'll send our membership service team. So we sit there and we decide who's going to go to what. Now we try to go to probably 80% of the state and regional association meetings, one person. Regionals we send 2 to 3, depending. Our president always goes to the regions unless for some reason she can't make it. For the most part, she does all 10 of them and takes 1 or 2 of us along with her. So I do a lot of, I don't travel as much on the state and regions. When I was younger, I probably went to 10 regional or states a year. And then, but now since I do legs regs, we also have a thing called technical assistance where we will go to people's campuses and put on trainings of whatever they want. And so it can be a legislation and regulations, it can be a new directors, it can be a compliance assessment. I travel a lot with those. But also I have 2 little ones, so which I have one right here. Okay, baby, you got it. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. Okay.
That was awesome. Sorry, I get that too. So no, you're good.
Yes, I can see your eyes. Like, yeah, I know that look. Let me tell you. But so I used to travel a lot more for those kind of things. Now I travel more with my trainings, more on technical assistance. It's very interesting. I become a salesperson, right? So I'm like, well, I think you need to do this, and we need to come down, and we need to show your grants people how to, X, Y, and Z. But also at the same time, people are always like, well, we need COE. Because I have faculty, right, that will go and do this. I'm not an expert. I mean, I never ran a TRIO program either. So I know the rules, but I don't, there's a lot of things that I don't know, and you don't want me doing. Because in theory, it sounds great to me. It might never work, right? But it's interesting for people to say, well, I really want somebody from COE. And to be quite honest, at this point in COE, Maureen and I are the only two people that could travel knowing the regulations wise. Okay. Kim is our she does our trainings for our law. She's a lawyer by trade, and she's very, very good at it, but she doesn't know anything underneath the law, and so she doesn't typically travel with us. So it would be her and I. So for the last couple of years, it's been me. And but as I was saying, with two kids, it's gotten a lot harder. Oh, absolutely. So I've been trying to stay at home more. And we have Nicole Norflus is our director of our, I just said her title a little bit ago. I can't think of her title, but she does our STEM initiatives. She does our onboarding. So she travels with that. And she does our P4. So she travels all with that. Plus she's on a couple of NSF grants, and she travels for that as well. And then Vanessa Ramirez, who just came on board, maybe, I bet she's getting to her year anniversary. She's fabulous. She worked in a talent search program. That's what we need, right? More people working in their program. So she helps me a lot on service-oriented things that we can do for the community. We just hired Jen Rudolph, who was a director of Upper Bound at Cornell. She's coming to my division. She'll be a director of pre-college services. So we have people there that have actually worked in TRIO, because the one thing that I can do all day long is provide compliance content, and I used to joke around, like, I kid you not. So at our annual conference or at a webinar, I'm like, I can put the most boring description, but I say review O&B, and I'll get 100 people. I'm like, my titles don't have to be sexy. I don't have to wave things around saying, people will come, right? But we need more service-oriented things. And so we're bringing some TRIO people to COE so they can get that content, that service content from people who have lived it, been in it. So we're really, really excited about that. And I can focus on my job of the compliance and the regulations, and it works out really well. Awesome. I think with that question that fed off of the traveling, were there any particular locations that you really liked to visit or even going to? So I love to travel, but listen, I've been to Butte, Montana. I've been to Pocatello, Idaho. I've been all over California. I've been to Maine. I've been to Alaska. I've been to Guam. I mean, who loves my life more than me? It's I mean, I've had so many wonderful trips. I've been to almost all 50 states. I'm only missing 2. So. Which I'm gonna get to, because there's just random 2 states, and it's been wonderful because the people have been. I mean, I just in February 2019, I got to go to not Corpus Christi. We went to the beach there, and we did a training for the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley on the beach. I mean, come on, how lovely is my life? So I've just been to a lot of places. I've met a lot of wonderful, wonderful people. I've been to Puerto Rico.
That's amazing.
Probably, yeah. I mean, at least 10 times now in my lifetime. And it just gets better every time.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
And I get to take my kids now, so
yeah,
they get to
cool.
travel along with me. Yeah, I mean, daughter, she signed up for a couple of years ago. We were doing SSS training, and we went to Polson, Montana, and then we jumped a plane to Atlanta, Georgia. And she was like, "I want your life." I'm like, "You're gonna have my life," and tenfold, you know.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing. That is awesome. So with regards to TRIO programs, you must get a lot of feedback. Do you think that each program, you alluded to earlier, you said each program does run differently. What are some of those differences and some similarities that the TRIO programs share?
I think they're all unique in the senses that they're all working, you know, we're all humans, so their supervisors are all different, how they run their campuses or their agencies are all different in that sense. But they're all, you know, they all want to do good. They want to help students, at least the people in the TRIO programs, okay? Mm-hmm. I can't say that for all the supervisors, and I can't say that for all the business people, but they also have their own, what they have to accomplish too, right? So, and I'm not taking that away from them because it's an important thing that they do as well. But I think what I've learned is every single TRIO person loves their students. They love their kids, and they want only the best for their students, and I commend them for that. And they will do anything for their students. Yeah. And that's amazing because you guys work 1 million hours and you don't get paid very much, and you work in summers and you go on trips and you work nights and, you know, you do booths, and you guys, it's just, you always remind me about just talk about a work ethic and for you know, somebody other than you.
Shout out to all the TRIO professionals. You all are killing it out there.
They are. And I know you're not now, but you were, and you know,
I know.
And but also, so I think, so there's a lot of camaraderie in that. But sometimes if you don't know that, you think you might just be working in a program that you have no idea is a part of a federally funded program, and you can feel so alone, and, you know, and you're like, we're doing this work and we're the only ones doing it. And then listen, you come to your first regional meeting, or you come to your first national meeting, and you see, and it's just amazing, right? Yes, it's just absolutely, you're like, oh my God,
I'm not alone. Look at all these other programs doing kind of what I'm doing too.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, it's just wild. And even state meetings, I mean, I think are just really cool to get together and just talk about, you know, what's going on at your institution, what's going on at your agency. So, but I think what is different and sometimes hard is that a lot of TRIO, and I'm just going to talk about TRIO directors now.
Yeah.
It just depends on how they're placed at their institution, or how much the institution cares about you, or values you. Okay. And sometimes directors come in they are counselors at heart. They're just working for the students, but they're not savvy enough to talk with their supervisors about, hey, I'm a valuable resource to this institution. And look at my retention rate of my students and what that's doing, and the money that we're bringing in to the institution for this, you know, or for veterans, or for returning adults for the city or the county. people are scared to talk about things like that, right? They're like, oh, nope, I'm just going to run my little program here, and I'm going to be happy, and I'm going to just do the best I work for my 160. When you think about if their mind frame was just tilted just a little bit about, just even letting the institution, the community know what you're doing, how you're doing it, how you are a part of the retention statistics here at Colorado State University. It's powerful, but if you don't know that, if you go in, all the time I have people come in and they're just like, they want me to do this, but I'm with SSS and I just need to do this. And, and I just start asking questions. I'm like, well, why wouldn't you want to do this? Well, I don't think I can. I need to do only SSS. And I'm like, that's not entirely true. Yeah. And so let's have a conversation. So they're a lot more alike than you would think. But there are some really, really innovative people out there that are just doing some amazing work with their students. And there's also these really amazing directors out there that are like, hey, I'm taking my program 2.0, or my dynasty here of Trio, right, is and beyond. Yeah. You have institutions that have 13 programs that are combined with federal and states that are just they're doing just on such another scale of working for low-income first-generation students.
Absolutely. With that question, I want to kind of go over to the next one that says these communities that really value their programs, when any conversation comes up about either taking a little bit of funding away from TRIO or redirecting funds, it seems like the community is really ready to rally around TRIO, especially when it comes to funding. In your opinion, what makes TRIO a lasting force within marginalized communities?
Well, I think you always have to be organized, and you always have to have the power of the people. The people have to be educated, and they have to be willing to fight for it. And the problem with other programs is they always, that if you don't have the advocacy behind it, you're not going to go anywhere. We have programs and similar, and they're like, they don't have a advocacy group or anybody telling them. And so if they're like, oh, we got level funded, that's great. And my boss is the president emeritus and the president now. They would say, no, we're asking for $200 million. And people would be like, are you crazy? And they're like, that is a drop in the bucket, and we would be scolded about talking about how much money goes into this and how much, and this is higher education, people, and this is, in the scheme of things, this is a rounding error. You have to shoot high. You have, if we are going to break, we're at 7%, right, we only serve 7% of the eligible population. So you have to dream big. Absolutely. And you can't stand for status quo. Absolutely. You can't just say thank you for nothing. You got to keep fighting. And that's why you need to have your regions, and that's why you need to have your national associations to help you fight. While you're working with your students, they're the ones doing the research for you. Those are the ones that are helping you and telling you, well, we have to get to this member and to this member. You don't have time to do that. You don't have time to, and do your job and be a parent. That's why you have these organizations there to fight for you and help you understand what you have to do to get it done.
Absolutely. So my next part of the question, it relates to the various support that COE receives, because as you alluded to earlier, you said that COE receives support from institutional support. But what can normal people like that are not institutions, that are not a university entity, how can they support COE?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of different ways. Gotcha. So there's a number of different ways. We have a personal donation campaign, so people can give personal donations to COE. Our biggest funding source is our membership. So institutions and agencies pay to be a membership of COE. And they get discounts on our trainings, our webinars, etc. That's our biggest source. We also have a lot of different partnerships with other nonprofits or other corporations or foundations that are doing similar work. We partner with Comcast quite a bit. And I don't know, do you know Fernando Cardenas?
I've heard of the name.
So he used to work at our office, and he now works at Comcast. And so we have we have an alum that works there. She's from Wyoming too. So that we work really close with. We've had grants from the Lumina Foundation. We're in the works for getting one from Strata, which they're very interested in the workforce development for our students. So we have that kind of partnership and money coming in as well. We do a lot of grants, of course, right? And we do ask people to make a contribution if they can. But those are really our revenue sources. We also, we have a partnership with the European Access Network, which is similar to what we try to do here in the States with low income first generation. They do it with low income and minority students. Mm-hmm. And so we go to their conference every year. They come to our conference every year. We also have a partnership with our study abroad programs with them. So I think that's a very important partnership to us. So it's money is great. Obviously, we love money, right? Everybody loves money, but also the resources and the connections and giving our students opportunities where new opportunities where maybe we hadn't thought about before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The reason for that question was I'm seeing more and more people starting to take agency with money, and they're saying, you know what, I want to put, if there is an organization that is advocating for a program that I love and that it's for it and it's 100% chips in, then I want to be able to support that, or I want to show my support. And I think you all are a fantastic organization that continues to advocate for TRIO programs. So I think our audience, for those who are maybe not fully aware of how to be involved, it sounds like there's multiple ways to get involved to support COE.
Absolutely. And you can just give us cash. We would love you for that too. So you can always go to our website and donate money as well. COE is a big proponent of donations as well. When our good people in Puerto Rico with their hurricanes and then now the earthquakes, so we've been doing donations for them. We give 100% of their money, 100% of the money that comes in for that particular relief, we send straight to them so they can buy things for their students.
That's awesome.
We let the Caribbean Association say who needs the money the most. We just kind of give them a check of what we received. So we try, COE as an organization tries to help out as much as we can as well. And we, at our annual conference, we, depending on what city we're in, we always do a public service event for typically middle school, high schoolers, homeless students that it started off as backpacks, but we've gone now to organizations of what they may need. So sometimes a lot of toiletries, a lot of cosmetic kind of things for their students. So, people have real needs out there. Absolutely. And so whatever COE can do to give back to, we try to help out as well.
That's awesome. What have been some challenging aspects of providing training to TRIO programs? Have there been any sort of challenges that you've run into?
For writing for TRIO grants? I write TRIO training grants, okay? So I don't write, I've never written a TRIO grant before. But some of the common mistakes, if you're asking my opinion, I read lots of defunded proposals, and I try to find reason to make a case to apply for an appeal. But I think a lot of times people don't read. People don't invest in COE, so they don't come to our webinars or come to our proposal writing workshops. And a lot of times their institutions have been funded for years and years and years, but their directors change, right? Or you have a director who is wonderful but thinks they know everything, and there could be a new section in the grant that they missed. I mean, I've read it where people are using objectives that were gone in the 80s, and they're still in their proposals.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So what's challenging to me is, on our perspective, is that people just don't read and understand. It's actually, TRIO is, you answer questions. You have about 50 questions you have to answer in 65 pages. And people like to talk about all this different stuff that will not get you a point, and it might not be relevant. And so that's what we try to teach them. But in terms of challenges, it's just that, for a tribal college, everybody's poor and everybody's first gen. And you're trying to parse out a section of of who are the most needy. I mean, that is so incredibly sad, right?
Yeah.
That you can't write for a whole tribal college. You have to pick out, why will you help only this 200 people? That's just a society challenge. But I think in everyday life, I think people give too much authority to the Department of Ed, and I think it goes to their head a lot. They like to say that they have authority over things that they really don't. The regulations say very different. So I think that's a challenge just in everyday life. But in terms of writing a grant, it's just reading, just to make sure that they know the questions that are being asked. And an institution too, okay? An institution does not want to look bad. Nobody ever wants to look bad. But your whole first section is why you need this grant, because your institution sucks at working with low-income first-generation students. And you have to make that case that you're doing a terrible job and you need intervention.
Yeah, I think it's hard for institutions to admit that they might be doing a terrible job, right? And it's hard to accept that and say, you know what, in order for us to get the funding for an Upward Bound program or for a TRIO program in general, we need to say, you know what, we've not done the outreach to that particular population, and we want to have a TRIO program so we can do a much better job. It's that acceptance of that, right?
And it's so funny because you could read the first 3 pages of a grant and you're like, we're going to start over here, because they're all like saying how wonderful they are about helping people who don't need help anyway. You know what I mean? Or talking about other people. You're like, yeah, but you're talking about affluent students who came in with a 4.0. I mean, right? They had a lot of things going for them already coming into the institution. So it's interesting. It's interesting.
Absolutely.
And trying to get them to understand that is a fun challenge, to be honest. So.
And you all are doing a magnificent job at that, of helping programs understand, or even institutions understand, how they're doing their outreach and how they can better connect with their students to make sure that there's that transitioning happening, right? That they're going to a post-secondary education. Yeah.
And a lot of times people are like, well, it's funny having these conversations. But we have this student and he's going to the military, or we have this student, but he's going to go on his mission. And, you've got to look at them in the eye and be like, that's why you didn't write for 100% objective, because you knew students were going to go on equally successful paths.
Yeah.
But not post-secondary. So, you have that. Or, you have Congress sometimes like, well, my daddy didn't go to college and I didn't go to college. So, and we're like, that is awesome. Totally cool. we're not saying that 100% of America has to go.
Yeah.
But we're saying that we are giving the most vulnerable people a chance to succeed. And in our mind, a chance to succeed in America is with a post-secondary degree, you know?
Absolutely.
So, but we are not telling you that that career tech is not important too.
Yeah.
Or, you know, people who come from very wealthy entrepreneurial places, that's understandable. You have your ways too, you know, that's cool. So
they've hit the jackpot, right? They've done this thing, but it's about, we're advocating for students that are trying to connect and trying to make that step into what success means for them. And like you said, we're not trying to tell them in a program objective is, yes, we're trying to get you to post-secondary education, but if you find a path that's a little bit more outlined for you and that you feel comfortable with, that those TRIO programs have this moral obligation to help the student transition to that.
Exactly. And, you know, in every TRIO program, I've never seen one director upset about a student unless it's something that, you know, the kid is just being dumb. You know, they're just being dumb, which we have lots of those. I mean, it's life kind of thing. But, you know, they're proud of their students and they're taking them a far way, you know, farther than they could ever imagine. So, absolutely. I mean, that's what TRIO people do, is that they help students grow. Absolutely. They help students grow. And, you know, so be it if they're going to hit that post-secondary outcome. Some people take a long time. Some people, they don't need to. They go and get a certificate or something that it's gonna be very successful for them, and that's okay. Absolutely. That's okay too.
Absolutely.
So.
Well, Angelica, we're almost done with the questions. I do want to say this has been a wonderful and informative podcast. But just to kind of wind down, everybody has been learning. I've seen on Facebook how to make bread, how to do all of these things. People are like they've displayed a lot of skills that, like, oh my gosh, you could do that at home. What are some things that you've been working on or that you've picked up, either that you've either been interested in or that you're not picking up as a hobby?
Well, I have been jumping on a trampoline more in my life. Yes, it just, you know, it's like a cartwheel. Have you tried to do a cartwheel in the last 20 years?
I have not, no.
Okay.
No.
Well, so I was fabulous at cartwheels, right? I mean, I could do a cartwheel. I tried to do a cartwheel the other day, and I failed miserably. And I was like, but mentally I know how to do a cartwheel. I can do a cartwheel. So I've been taking a lot of what I like to do is I used to run. I haven't ran since I've had my second kid, so it's been a long time. But so I walk. I like long walks, and I like to just put a podcast on.
Oh, that's awesome.
And just walk. It's one of my favorite things to do. My kids like to scooter, so I can't do it quite as well. I mean, I walk, but I have to actually pay attention to them. Yeah. So we do that a lot. Now in the pandemic, we don't. The only thing that they let. Okay, babe, you gotta go. I'm almost done, and then we. Yeah, go ahead.
That was my son earlier. He came in. I don't know if
I saw you.
I was like, maybe, and he's like, I just want to get a snack. I'm like, go.
Yeah,
go.
Yeah. That's it. She's like, I just want dessert. But listen, okay, their father is right out there. Doing nothing. Well, I shouldn't say that, but I'm in his office, so I know he's not doing work or anything. So
Yeah.
Anyway, so we've been doing that. Other than that, I'm terrible. I don't have very many hobbies. I work a lot. My sister-in-laws are my people that keep my kids like entertained. But so for me, it's nice to get outside and just to be alone in my thoughts and listening to things that I want to listen to. And I'm outside with my kids a lot more. So. Yeah. My daughter's 9, though, or going to be 9.
Yeah.
in a couple of weeks, and so I let
happy early birthday to her.
Yeah, I will tell her that. But she can be outside by herself, and so she just cartwheels all day long. I mean, literally, she'll just sit there and do cartwheels,
Awesome.
or jump on the trampoline, or we have a tree house too. So, but when my 5-year-old's outside, I feel more compelled to keep an eye on her.
Right,
so.
we gotta monitor the 5-year-old because I feel like it's the youngest. Oh, it's always the youngest one. You got to keep an eye out for the youngest one. Yeah.
Always. Just a quick story. I was up. This was she was probably 3. She was little, and she's not little. She's built like me, like a brick. We were upstairs, and we were up in the treehouse, and I was cleaning it. Baby. Okay.
Now we're acknowledging your children just coming in. Which is totally cool.
Come here, say hi real quick, and then you got to go.
Hi.
Okay. So, up in the treehouse, and Vivian, she got this treehouse at 4 years old, I think. Her uncle built it. It was built already, but he made it stable.
Yeah.
And so Elise was 3, I think, and we're up there. She's with me. And I'm brooming out the thing, and I turn around for 1 second, and she's fallen out. She's fallen out the treehouse. And I was like, Alicia, I mean, it was a scary, scary experience, and she was okay. She was fine.
I almost caught her.
Yes, Vivian almost caught her. Okay, no, baby, sit down. Okay, so, but it was
be on the podcast if she wants to.
Yeah, don't tell her that. It was the scariest experience, but all of a sudden, she was there and then she wasn't there. And so I was like, Lisa, you cannot go to the treehouse until you are 4 years old or something like that. And so everything for her, because she is a klutz. I mean, she's a lot like me. So she's a klutz. And so everything, we put age on for her. Okay. You need to sit. We put
Angelica's children just coming in and out of the podcast. It's hilarious. It's funny. Sorry, Angelica.
Okay. Well, we're close to the. Okay, baby. No more. So anyway, yes. So she's my girl that I just have. We take her out scootering, and about every 8th time she falls and hurts herself. And so she's my little clumsy girl. So.
Aww. Well, me having 3 kids, they all have their characteristics. The oldest
I bet.
One, at this point, I can just, dude, just text me when you're about to go do things. Just tell me. Go ahead.
Yeah, and tell me again, how big is your house?
We live in an apartment right now. So
okay, you're living in an apartment. You're living close.
Yeah. It's tight quarters, and at this point, we're not tired of each other, but we like the space. But definitely my oldest, he's feeling it. He's like, I want to be out a lot.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. I bet.
Yeah.
So, but I feel like I'm getting mad or yelling at them every other minute. But then something like that. Sabrina from Oklahoma. Sabrina Ford, and then something like that happens, and so I'm like, so like last night, my kids were driving me nuts, and I was like, but I have them, so I'm just gonna shut up tonight,
Yeah,
so.
Gotta be thankful for the little things. So our hearts go out to Sabrina and her family, and we're that way she knows that we're thinking about her and thinking about her during this difficult time. So. And Angelica, I just want to say it was an honor having you on the podcast.
Oh,
thank you so much for agreeing. Kind of on a short. I asked you last week, and then we just kind of put it in the back burner. I was like, oh shoot, I got to develop questions, and then I sent you the questions last night, which I felt so guilty of.
Oh, you were fine. I got it this morning. I was like, oh, they're fine. They're good. I mean, so if I don't know the answers to these, I'm in trouble. So
no, you did a great podcast. I appreciate you being on the podcast, and hopefully we can have you again in the future, and maybe with somebody else if you want to. That would be really cool.
Okay, that sounds great. I'd love to come back. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time, Angelica, and hopefully we get to talk to you again soon. And please let COE know that we're here, and we'd love to have them on the podcast too.
I will. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye, Angelica.
Bye.
Are you a participant, alum, or staff of a TRIO program? Do you want your program highlighted? You or your program could be featured in an upcoming episode of Let's Talk TRIO. Get a hold of us by going to our Facebook page or Instagram and send us a direct message. Search for Let's Talk TRIO. We want to get your story to the public.
What a fantastic interview with Angelica Vialpando from the Council for Opportunity in Education. So thank you, Angelica, for sitting down with us at the Let's Talk Trio podcast. We really enjoyed having Angelica on the program. It was really nice being able to connect with her and talk about the various policies and the various topics that fall under TRIO and how COE is able to help and assist. They develop these programs and workshops to really give TRIO programs an edge not only when it comes to grant writing, but to the policies and the small little tidbits that every TRIO program has to worry about funding and then program objectives and various other topics. I'd like to say a quick thank you to Student Access, our sponsor for today's podcast. A thank you to the podcast team, sound engineer and in-house musician, John Russell, producer and marketing manager, Amelia Castañeda, executive producer and host, Juan Rivas. Honorary members of Let's Talk Trio include Tony Ho, Roderick Chambers, and Scott Kendall. Remember, fans, you can always donate to Let's Talk Trio via Patreon. Help us keep this podcast going. We thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode.